I'm Hazel. Standing in the quiet hospital room, watching the snowflakes dance outside the window, I can't help but reflect on the long and arduous journey that has brought me to this moment. The weight of the past, the pain, and the betrayal seem to melt away in the warmth of the present, as I hold my newborn son, Noah, in my arms and feel the love and support of my brother, Dr. Leo Reed, and his fiancée, Ava Thompson, beside me. It all started on a sweltering August day in Seattle. I had been a surgeon at the city's prestigious University Medical Center for over a decade, but nothing could have prepared me for the events that were about to unfold. A 14-year-old girl named Lily Carter was brought in with a severe congenital heart defect. Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Carter, were desperate for a solution, and the hospital's chief of surgery, Dr. Victor Reed, Leo's father, decided to take on the case. Leo, a young and ambitious surgeon who had just returned from a fellowship in Paris, was eager to prove himself. He saw this as an opportunity to make a name for himself and ignored the warnings from other doctors, including me. I tried to reason with him, explaining that with our current equipment and Lily's critical condition, the surgery was highly likely to fail. But Leo, full of arrogance born from privilege and overconfidence, wouldn't listen. On the morning of the surgery, Leo simply disappeared. No call, no explanation. Dr. Victor cornered me in the hallway and told me I had to step in. I was hesitant, knowing that Lily's chances were slim. But then Mr. Carter appeared, his eyes red with desperation. He pleaded with me, saying that they knew the risks but that if there was even a glimmer of hope, they wanted to take it. Lily wanted to fight. Against my better judgment, I scrubbed in. The surgery was a disaster. Lily's frail body couldn't withstand the strain, and she passed away less than an hour after the final suture was placed. I stepped into the waiting room, feeling like a failure, and told the Carters the news. Mrs. Carter collapsed, screaming at me that I had killed her daughter. Her grief and anger were overwhelming, and I couldn't find the words to defend myself. That night, I left the hospital long after the sun had set. The city seemed to be going on as usual, but I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare. My marriage had ended a few years ago. My ex-wife, a free-spirited artist, had left me for a more bohemian lifestyle in New York, leaving me alone and broken. The only thing that greeted me at home was my dog, Luna, a stray I had found on a rainy night. She wagged her tail, oblivious to my pain. I was walking across the bridge over the Puget Sound one afternoon, my mind still haunted by Lily's death. Suddenly, I noticed a woman in a wedding dress climbing the railing. At first, I thought it was a photo shoot, but then I realized she was alone. I called out to her and started running, but it was too late. She jumped into the water with a splash. Without thinking, I dropped my bag, kicked off my shoes, and dove in. The cold water hit me like a shock, but I swam as hard as I could towards her. When I reached her, I hooked my arm under her shoulders and kicked towards the shore. By the time I dragged her onto the muddy embankment, I was exhausted. I checked her airway. She was still breathing, but her eyes were closed and her body was limp. I tilted her chin and gave her 2 quick breaths. Water sputtered from her lips, and she coughed weakly. I asked her if she could hear me, but her gaze was vacant. I took her back to my apartment. As she slept on my couch, I noticed a thin scar on her knee. I recognized it immediately. I had stitched that scar on a patient almost a year ago, a young woman named Iris who had been brought in by a group of skateboarders after a bad accident. She had been a street kid, full of anger and resilience. The next morning, Iris was no better. Her speech was slurred, and her movements were slow. A battery of tests at the hospital revealed that she had dangerously high levels of psychotropic drugs in her system. Someone had drugged her deliberately. As Iris started to recover, she told me her story. She had grown up in a series of abusive foster homes. She had fought for survival every day, and when she was a teenager, she aged out of the system with nothing but a backpack of clothes. One night, she saved an elderly man, Mr. Henry Thompson, from a mugging. Mr. Thompson, a wealthy business magnate with no heirs, took her under his wing. He treated her like a daughter and taught her everything about running his company. After Mr. Thompson's death, Iris met his nephew, Caleb. He told her he loved her for who she was, and they got married quickly. But soon after the wedding, Iris started experiencing strange symptoms. Caleb insisted she see a psychiatrist, and the doctor diagnosed her with schizophrenia. However, the diagnosis was never confirmed by further tests. I warned Iris to be careful around Caleb. I suspected he was behind her drugging. A few days later, Caleb came to visit her in the hospital with a thermos of herbal tea. Against my advice, Iris took a sip. Within hours, the fog returned, and her condition worsened. Another toxicology screen confirmed that she had been drugged again. To make matters worse, we discovered that Iris was pregnant. She was terrified that Caleb would harm the baby. We made a plan to catch Caleb in the act. I notified the hospital's legal team and the police. When Caleb came to visit again, Iris confronted him. He initially denied everything, but then he let his guard down and admitted to drugging her. The police stepped in and arrested him for administering controlled substances without consent and attempted fraud. Iris was determined to get a divorce and start a new life. I promised to help her every step of the way. In the weeks that followed, as Iris's strength returned, I found myself drawn to Ava, a kind-hearted nurse who had been taking care of Iris. Iris noticed the spark between us and encouraged me to ask Ava out. Ava and I started dating, and our relationship grew stronger with each passing day. We discovered shared interests and a deep connection. One weekend, as we were exploring the city with Iris, I realized that Ava was the one I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. A month later, I proposed to her at the little Italian restaurant where we had our first date, and she said yes. Then, one winter night, Iris went into labor. I was in the operating room, my heart pounding. This wasn't just another patient, this was my sister. The labor was long and difficult, and Iris started hemorrhaging. I snapped into action, using all my skills as a surgeon and my love as a brother to save her and the baby. Finally, a cry filled the room. Noah was born, healthy and strong. Iris was also stable. In the recovery room, as Iris held Noah in her arms, I felt a sense of peace and fulfillment. We had come through so much, but we were a family now, bound by love and choice. Looking back on it all, I realized that life is full of unexpected twists and turns. I may have made mistakes in the past, but I've learned from them. I've found a new family, and I'm ready to face the future with hope and love.